Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. So today I will tell you about this book, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. This is the first book of the Millennium series by Stieg Larsson. So he was a Swedish journalist and a reporter, and he wrote this book somewhere around 2004, but unfortunately he died in 2004, and the book was launched 1 year after his death, 2005, and immediately after the launch of this book, it became a global sensation, and it was sold more than 100 million copies. That is the official record, but if you check the unofficial record, that means this book has been translated into different languages, different regional languages, and if you take all into account, it would be, I think, more than 200 millions. So it is a global phenomenon. So, and I think 70 or 80% of my audience have already read this book. This actually needs no introduction, but still I will say, for those 20 or 30% who have not read this yet. So the book starts with one industrialist named Henrik Vanger, who is a big industrialist of Sweden, and he gets a mysterious flower, pressed flower, by someone, and one of his family members is missing. Name of her is Harriet Vanger, and she is disappeared since 1966. And Harriet Vanger doesn't know what had happened to her, and she thinks, and Harriet Vanger thinks that someone in his family has killed Harriet, and now he wants to find out who has done that heinous act. So that is the first part of the story. Now the second part, so we see another corrupted businessman named Wennerstrom, and he has been exposed by one journalist named Mikael Blomqvist, and he is the main character of our story. So Mikael Blomqvist wrote something in his magazine called Millennium about that corrupted businessman named Wennerstrom, but he couldn't prove anything in court. So that's why court finds him guilty, and he is given 3 months sentence. So at this moment, the advocate of Henrik Vanger, which is a Dutch fraud, he calls Mikael Blomqvist that we want to assign a job to you, and if you have time, you can meet with Henrik Vanger. So then we see that Mikael Blomqvist comes to meet Henrik Vanger. So there Henrik Vanger gives one job to Mikael Blomqvist to find out the killer of that girl in his family, who is Harriet Vanger, which Henrik Vanger thinks that someone in his family has killed. Actually that is not the case, that we will see later. So one pressed flower is given to Henrik Vanger on his birthday, Henrik Vanger's birthday, every year, even after her disappearance. So which makes Henrik Vanger thinks that someone had killed Harriet Vanger. So Harriet is the granddaughter of his brother, one of his brother named Harold, I believe it is Harold, and his son is Martin, and his daughter is Harriet. 1 minute. I think Harold Vanger's son is Gottfried Vanger, and Gottfried's son is Martin, and Gottfried's daughter is Harriet. So Harriet is disappeared in this story. The story is too much complicated and jumbled, too much complicated. So many characters are there, so I will need some time to explain you, but still I will do. So Harold's granddaughter, which means it somehow is related to Henrik, you can call Harriet the Henrik's granddaughter also. So Harriet is disappeared in 1966, and the day in which she disappeared, that was full of some events. One car crashed with one oil tanker in the place where they live, that is Hedeby Island. On the bridge, the tanker collides with the car, and while they were busy, and it was also the annual meeting day for all the Vanger family members, and while they were all busy about taking out the person who was injured in that car accident, Harriet got disappeared somewhere in that time, and people don't know what happened to her. So this is the main story. Now she has been out from the picture for 36 years. Now that assignment is given to Mikael Blomkvist. So at first Mikael Blomkvist doesn't want to take that from Henrik Vanger. That he says that I will not do this because I have my own problems with Wennerstrom and I have my own magazine Millennium. So how can I find time to do that? Moreover, it would be fruitless if I get nothing, because you have been searching for this for 36 years and you have got nothing. So what you expect me to do? So then Henrik Vanger tells Mikael Blomkvist that I will give you 2.4 million kroner even if you don't find anything about Harriet. But if you are able to solve this puzzle, then I will give you 5 million kroner. So then at that moment, Blomkvist agrees. Then the final offer that was given was that Henrik tells Mikael Blomkvist that I will give you the evidence about Wennerstrom. Wennerstrom was, I have told you already, I think, Wennerstrom was that corrupted businessman about whom Mikael Blomkvist has written something in his magazine, but he was unable to prove it in the court. So Henrik Vanger tells Mikael Blomkvist that I will give you all the evidence that you need, because Wennerstrom used to work in my company, Vanger Industries, one time, and I have some evidence that can prove that Wennerstrom is a corrupted businessman who is involved in arms and drug dealing and arms trafficking, money laundering, and so many illegal things. So then Mikael Blomkvist agrees. So now comes his chance to prove, not to prove, his chance to find out what happened to Harriet. And so he gets all the documents, all the reports related to police investigation, and all the photographs and all the newspaper writings that happened during that time, 1966. So he goes through everything very intricately, and then he finds out that the case didn't start in 1966 in Hedeby Island on that day of their annual gathering. It started earlier in Headstead, when Harriet had one school parade day meeting, and all the students, Harriet's friends, were gathered there. So there in that picture, Mikael Blomkvist finds out that something is wrong about Harriet's expression. So he checks the photograph, and on the backside of it he finds out the name of the studio. So he goes to the studio and take out all the photos that was taken during that parade day 1966 where Harriet was present, and he goes to that studio and take all the pictures and copies it in his laptop, and then he makes a slide show type thing in PowerPoint. And when he runs it, he sees that it was clearly visible that Harriet was scared at that, and something happened. Seeing someone, Harriet got scared. So after researching so much, he finds out that in that photograph it was missing, because on the opposite side of Harriet, who was there, means looking at whom Harriet got scared, Mikael Blomkvist was unable to find out till that time. But he sees in that picture that someone on the back side of Harriet had one camera in her hand, and she was also clicking some photos. So by looking at that, Mikkel Blomqvist starts searching about that person, that girl, that lady who was there, who was clicking pictures. Probably in her pictures it could be seen that who was there opposite Harriet. So Mikkel Blomqvist goes searching, and he goes to one town, or you can call it a small village, countryside town named North J, and he finds out this from that photograph. He checks it carefully, and the lady who clicked that picture and his husband went inside a car, and in that car there was written North J Carpenter or something, North J Carpenting Department House, carpenter shop or something. So from there Blomqvist finds out that I can get some link, and if I somehow get the photograph clicked by the lady, maybe there is a chance that I can solve the mystery who was opposite Harriet. So Blomqvist goes to that town North J, and after searching so much he finds out that lady, and from her he gets the photograph. And in that photograph he sees that there was one person opposite Harriet, but his face was not visible since it was covered with one balloon, because that was National Parade Day, and so many clowns and so many balloons and so many people making fun, everything, procession was going on that road. So from that picture it was not clearly visible who was there opposite Harriet, but still Blomqvist copies all the photos, and in that photo he saw one person wearing one coat, and in his coat there was one red strip on one shoulder, but the face was not visible. So then Blomqvist goes to Harriet, to Henrik Vanger's house, and in the meantime Henrik Vanger gets one brain stroke, so he is admitted to the hospital. So, and then Blomqvist asks his servant, whose name is Anna, her to give all the photos clicked by Henrik that were not shown yet to Blomqvist. So he gets all the photos, and there he finds something new. So that I will tell later. First of all, I will give you something more about that story. So after Harriet Vanger disappeared, so when Blomqvist came, he got one diary of Harriet, in which on the backside of the diary some names and some dates were written, some phone numbers, name and phone numbers were written. So Blomqvist couldn't figure out what were they. So he asks the detective who was in charge of the investigation at that time, 1966. The name of that person was Morel. So Detective Morel tells Blomqvist that these were just random names, and I cannot figure out what is that link, how are they related. So Mr. Morel couldn't figure out. So after searching so much, one time Blomqvist tells Freud that I need one assistant. So I need one assistant. So then Freud gives him one girl named Lisbeth Salander. That is one main character of this story, the heroine of our story. So she is a hacker and a very intelligent girl who can investigate and who can hack into anyone's computer and get all the details. So she comes into the picture. So Blomqvist gives her the diary of Harriet and tells her to find out what are they, which names are written, and what is the phone numbers, how are they related. So after searching, Lisbeth finds out that they are actually name of some girls who were murdered by some unknown serial killer, and the murders happened according to some religious text that is called Leviticus, one part of Old Testament, and the serial killer had modified or changed that religious text and performed all those brutal tortures towards those women. So now Lisbeth goes to the police station and starts searching about all those, whatever crime happened in 1950s and 1960s. Then she finds out that it was the name of all those names, and their short forms match to some women who were murdered and brutally assaulted, and related to all those things written in Leviticus. Means it was a modified part of Leviticus, not actually written in that. Means the serial killer had modified that in his own way and manipulated that and tortured and assaulted and abused those women and then killed them. And there were so many, 5-6 women who were killed. So after seeing all those police reports, Lisbeth gets to one connection that. So before that, Lisbeth asked for Freud's permission to check their archive or their library about all the documents related to Vanger Corporation, Vanger Industries. So then she finds out that whenever a woman got killed, at that time there was present the then CEO of Vanger Corporation, who is Gottfried Vanger, who was exactly present at that time, and all the girls were related somehow to that town where Gottfried Vanger was present. So Lisbeth comes to that conclusion that they might be killed by Gottfried. And there was one history of the Vanger family that they used to hate Jews, and Gottfried Vanger was particularly Harold and Gottfried. They were all believer in Nazis ideology, and they hate Jews. And all of the names that were written in Harriet Vanger's diary, all of the names were from Jews, belonged to Jews. So from this, Lisbeth finds out that there is a connection. There may be a connection between Gottfried and all the crimes that had been done. But there was one mismatch in that puzzle, because Gottfried died in 1965, but one girl was killed in 1966. So Lisbeth couldn't find out who did it. But later on, the puzzle is solved. Now on the other side, so Michael Blomqvist sees the photographs and then finds out that someone was there in Hedsted in that parade day, and he checks all the photographs and he goes to that place, North J, and get one photograph, and from there he gets the picture of that person, but his face was covered with balloon, but he had one coat on and one red strip along his shoulders. Then later on we see that Michael Blomqvist goes to Henrik's house, and Henrik at that time got one brain stroke and he was admitted into hospital. So his servant Anna gives Michael Blomqvist all the photographs that were clicked by Henrik, but that were not given to, since they were too much personal, they were not given to Blomqvist. But Blomqvist asked for those, and when he checks, he finds out that someone was there in Harriet Vanger's window on the day that she disappeared. So, and who was that person? So throughout the entire time, Blomqvist and Lisbeth thought that it was actually Cecilia Vanger. But when Blomqvist finally saw that photograph given by Anna, he finds out that on the dinner table there were two ladies who had particular type of hair which is called blonde, and they were wearing a light colored shirt, light colored garment, and both of them looked almost similar, and one of them was Cecilia Vanger and another was Anita Vanger. So now Blomqvist thinks that throughout the entire investigation, the person that we were thinking that it was Cecilia Vanger who was there in Harriet Vanger's window in all the pictures, actually she is not Anita, she is not Cecilia Vanger, she can be Anita Vanger, and anyone in Henrik Vanger's family can recognize Anita Vanger, but for Michael and for Lisbeth, she is unknown, stranger. So now Blomqvist starts searching about Anita Vanger, and then he finds out that Anita Vanger is not here in Hedeby. She had shifted to London. So now Blomqvist connects that some mystery is there. Maybe Harriet's disappearance has something to do with Anita Vanger. And one more thing, when in those photographs, Blomqvist sees that there is one more person who had one camera in his hand at that place of accident when that oil tanker collided with one car, and that person was Birger Vanger, one of the brothers of Henrik Vanger. So he goes to Birger and asks for the photographs, but from that photographs he finds nothing. So he gets some photographs, but he finds not that much evidence. Then that what come. He asks Anna, Henrik's servant, to give all the photographs which Henrik captured on that day of Harriet's disappearance, and also that accident of oil tanker on that bridge. So from there he finds out that one person was there whose image was blurred, but Blomqvist was sure, looking at his coat and the red color strip on his shoulder, that it is Henrik Vanger. But just for confirmation, Blomqvist asks Anna that who do you think is it? Anna without any doubt says that it is Henrik Vanger. And that same blazer or the coat with the red colored strip is seen in another picture, where seeing whom Harriet got scared at Hedeby on that parade day. So from these two connections, Blomqvist comes to that conclusion that it was Martin Vanger, looking at whom Harriet got scared. And that story of Harriet's disappearance doesn't start in Hedeby, it starts back in Hedstate on that parade day. So then he starts going to Martin's house without any arms or anything. Blomqvist goes to Martin's house. And on the other side, we see that Lisbeth finds out there that in all the incidents, Gottfried Vanger was there. Gottfried Vanger was involved somehow in all the incidents. And after 1965, someone was there. But Lisbeth couldn't figure out that till now. But later on, he finds out that the girl that was killed, finally, she was in Uppsala, one school. Or probably, I believe it was college, and Martin was also in that college in Uppsala, where that girl in 1966 was killed. So from that, Lisbeth comes to this conclusion that it is, after Gottfried's death, it is Henrik Vanger who is continuing this crime, this brutal crime on women. But on the other hand, we see that Blomqvist already goes to Martin's house, but Martin was not there. He goes somewhere with his car, but then he returns back, but Blomqvist was already inside his house. So something happens, and before one more thing happened, because one morning while doing the investigation, Blomqvist opens the door and sees that he had one cat in Hedeby Island. He sees that cat is dead. His head is separated from his body, and he is brutally murdered. That cat is brutally murdered and thrown in front of his door. So from that, Lisbeth got scared. So he got alert. He installed some CCTV cameras and some equipment, some fire alarm. Lisbeth Salander installs some CCTV cameras and some fire alarms and so many equipment, some fire extinguisher, because she thinks that the murderer, the serial killer is in Vanger family, and he can come and attack us and burn this house. So Lisbeth Salander installs some CCTV cameras and some fire extinguisher and some fire alarm and so many things. And before one more thing happens, when one day he was roaming in the wood and he went to that place where Gottfried Vanger got drowned in water and died in 1965. So when Blomqvist goes there, someone shoots him at that place, and the bullet touches in his forehead and goes out. It didn't go inside, and 2 more shots were fired, but fortunately Blomqvist was able to save himself, and he runs and comes safe home. But from that incident, Lisbeth become alerted, and she installs those things for precautionary measures. So from there, so when Lisbeth comes, Lisbeth was in the archive of the Vanger Industries. Lisbeth previously got permission of Freud and Henrik to get into the archive of Vanger Industries, so that she could get all the details related to all the history, because Lisbeth knows that there is some link between all the murders and the Vanger Industries. So she searches the history, and then she finds out that in all the murders of those girls, there is some link between Gottfried Vanger and that woman. Later on, it was Martin in 1966. But when she comes and she sees inside Hedeby, where Blomqvist and Salander were living, Salander sees that in her CCTV footage that someone came, and it was Martin, to check whether they were inside or not. Then she realizes that, and she also sees the photo of the one that was taken on Headstead on the parade day, and the one that was given by Anna, Henrik's servant. So she realizes that Blomqvist got it, that it was Martin who has been committing this after his father's death. So she goes there, and already on the other side, Blomqvist is captured by Martin Vanger, the serial killer. So he ties a noose around his neck and tries to kill by suffocating him. And before his killing, he says so many things that is not actually killing, that is actually execution. According to he has some own theory that I will tell you about later. But till now, let's continue the story. So Blomqvist is captured, and he is having some conversation with Martin Vanger, and in that conversation, Blomqvist finds out that it was not Martin Vanger who has killed Harriet Vanger, and Martin has no idea what happened to his sister Harriet. And he gets angry when Blomqvist talks about Harriet, and he was about to kill. Martin Vanger was about to stab one knife into Blomqvist when fortunately Lisbeth comes and hits Martin Vanger with a golf club and saves Blomqvist from the scenario. And when Martin Vanger tries to flee from that place, he is met with an accident. He was driving at a high speed while being chased by Lisbeth Salander, and his car hits with a truck at a high speed, and both of them, and Martin Vanger dies there in the accident, and Lisbeth was able to save Blomqvist from that scene. And we see that they get out, and when Blomqvist tells Lisbeth that we should inform the police, then Lisbeth tells her that we should not let the police come and figure out everything by themselves. We will not tell them that Martin Vanger is having one torture chamber under his house, on the basement of his house, where he has been torturing girls since 1950s along with his father. So Martin Vanger dies, but till now we don't know what has happened to Harriet Vanger. So now I told you that by seeing the photographs, Blomqvist realizes that it was not Cecilia Vanger, it was actually Anita Vanger, and both of them look just the same. And actually it was Anita Vanger who knows the exact location of Harriet, because Harriet and Anita were close friends, though they were not actually friends. Means there was one generation gap, but both of them were born 2 years earlier. Means the age gap between them were only 2 years. So there was a good friendship between them, Anita Vanger and Harriet Vanger. So Blomqvist realizes that it was probably Anita who knows about Harriet. And now where is Anita? So Anita is presently living in London. So Blomqvist goes there along with Lisbeth to talk to Anita, but Anita refuses to talk. But Lisbeth with her friends who were all hackers, they tapped their phone, and then they came to know that Anita called someone after her visit with Blomqvist, and the person who Anita called was Harriet, and she is alive and she is living in Australia with some different name, and her first name was same as Anita, but her surname is changed. And how this happened? So after giving all the evidences, when finally Blomqvist approaches Anita, Anita confesses that it was she who has helped Harriet to escape from that island, because her father had abused her for so many years since she was 14. And after that, actually Gottfried Vanger, who was Harriet's father, was killed by Harriet because Gottfried started torturing her so much, assaulting her so much that she couldn't take anymore. So one day Harriet hit him with a plank of wood, and he was drowned in the pond in a lake on the Hedeby Island. And in this way Gottfried died, and Martin was the only witness of that story, of that incident. So after that, Martin started blackmailing Harriet and again torturing and assaulting her. So finally, but when Martin was sent to Uppsala school or college somewhere, then Harriet thought that she would get some relief. But when on the parade day she saw that Martin was there, she realizes that her pain is never gonna end. So she told Anita to do something and in order to get rid of that pain. So Anita helps Harriet to leave from that island. So Anita hides Harriet on the backside of her car, and they were out, and nobody checked them because there were so many policemen on that bridge, because on one day before in 1966 one incident happened. One tanker collided with one truck. So there were so many policemen, but no one checked Anita Vanger's car since she was known to everyone. And so in this way Harriet was hidden there in that car, and Anita was able to transport her to some other place. And Anita gave her passport to Harriet, and both of them looked almost similar. Anita and also Harriet, their age gap was only 2, and they also looked same. So Anita gave her passport to Harriet, and Harriet fled to Australia and started a new life. She probably stayed a few years in Italy also, and then he met some guy with surname Spencer, and then both of them got married, and then they shifted to Australia, and there Harriet had a completely new life. And Anita, on the other hand, she never married. She stayed in London but never married, since marriage registrations are done in Sweden, and one person cannot be married to two people. Means one person's name cannot be registered under two segments. So that's why Anita sacrificed her life for Harriet, and she remained single forever. So that is the story. So now there comes, so after that Blomqvist goes, after Anita's confession, Blomqvist goes to Australia and finds out that Harriet is there, and Harriet got shocked seeing Blomqvist, but then he told the entire story to him. Then she told Harriet told the entire story to Blomqvist, and Blomqvist tells her to come to Hedeby Island once again because her near grandfather, Henrik, wants to meet her. So then Harriet comes and meets her grandfather Henrik, and Henrik Vanger makes her the CEO of Vanger Corporation. So that is the ending of the story. But there is still one more part left, that is the thing related to Wennestorm. So now Blomqvist, as was promised by Henrik, that he would be given Wennestorm's carcass on a plate, but means all the evidences that Henrik had related to Wennestorm. But when Henrik gives all the evidences, Blomqvist sees and thinks that this will come no use because this has been backdated. They were relatable 30 or 40 years before, but now they are not so much. They can prove nothing in the court. So all the work goes into vain. Blomqvist thinks that. So he becomes very upset and comes back to Stockholm or Hedstedt, where they were living. I believe it was Stockholm, I think. Then Lisbeth comes into rescue. So Lisbeth realizes the situation, and then he comes to help Wennestorm. So he tells Blomqvist that I have all the information related to Wennestorm. Before I started working with you, I did one detailed analysis about Wennestorm, and I find out that there is too much corruption going on. Wennestorm is a billionaire, and he has accumulated all the money by laundering arms and drugs and arms trafficking. So Salander now takes one fake identity and goes to Germany, and since she was a hacker, it was easy for her to make one fake identity and take all the money from Wennestorm and shift it to her account. And then when we get a news that Wennestorm is shot dead by some gang, since he was involved in some illegal activities. So he took some arms, but he was not able to repay the loan. So that's why the Colombian or probably Russian gang shoots him, and Wennestorm is dead. We get the news. That is the end of the story. This is the part 1 of Millennium book. Millennium's part 1 story, written by Stieg Larsson, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I don't think this book needs any introduction. I don't think, because this book is so much hit. If you go to any bookstore in this country, India, you will find this. But there is one more thing, that this is, since it is rated 18 plus, so because there is too much atrocious description of violence against women, so this book is banned in schools. So you will not find it in any school. And moreover, one movie was launched in 2011, I think. I believe it was in 2011, directed by David Fincher, and the legendary Daniel Craig in the lead as Mikael Blomqvist. And that movie was also banned in India by our censor board, since that showed too much violence against women, and those things are not allowed here in our country. So, but you will find, but despite of all of this, you will find this book in every single bookstore and every single library. This much famous is this book. So now let's come to the philosophical context of this. So if you read Stieg Larsson's life carefully, you will find out that the thing he has written has a lot to do with the topic of transgression. So transgression means capturing power by any means. and power comes from a sense. So if something that is materialistic, there are some ways to conquer that, but if that is a sense, how can you conquer that? So there you have to start one civil war, or deny that law, or start some sacrifice, like the great dragon. The dragon represents symbol of governmental power for thousands of years, and as the myth suggests, the great dragon demands blood, and for that blood it gives power. So here there are too much deep meaning. So just like in our society, we see that when the governmental power becomes shaky, so what would the leader do to solidify his or her position in that society? So you need to induce some war or some sacrifice. Now there is no wrong in justifying war. Some may say it is wrong, but in others' perspective it is right, because how can you solidify your position? Just like there is some controversy, means the author wants to tell this, Stieg Larsson, that the topic of transgression, that here you can fit the example of UN. According to Stieg Larsson, this is not my theory, don't take this to be my theories. He wants to tell that just like UN soldiers, UN funded soldiers in NATO kills thousands of unarmed civilians in Middle East, in the same way you need something to do to solidify your position. If the governmental power becomes shaky, you need to do something to protect your democracy. We call it the protecting our democracy, but actually we all speak in code. It is not actually protecting our democracy, but that is totally fine if all the citizens are in favor of all those pilots who throws bombs and kills thousands of unarmed civilians, and even funds them with their tax money. If they believes in that, that is totally fine. So that's what we see here, that Martin Vanger and Gottfried Vanger, they are in charge of a big corporation in Sweden. Means they feed almost 20,000 people by giving them salaries and pensions and taking responsibility of their life, but yet they yearly practice human sacrifice. They kill the Jews, the women. So in order to solidify their power, they need to do it. But if they don't do it, if the Vangers don't do it, then the workers might not listen to them. So they have to do it. That is the author who wanted to tell in this. Just like you can think it to be a shopping mall. A shopping mall the people don't decide where the shopping mall would be, but the shopping mall decides itself that where it will be situated, and where there are more human resources and where there are more money. Shopping mall decides whether, and the people does not decide. And the only reality in which people live is that consuming stuffs of that shopping mall, because that is the only reality they have. That is not of their choice, because that is the only life they have, is buy some fancy clothes and showing it on Instagram, not for their own sake, but that is the only life they have. And on the other hand, war denies civil laws. And another question comes here is that the war is waged by the soldiers or the police, and these institutions are created by the people who wants to stay in power. But why don't the soldiers or the policemen, they go to the White House to take charge? Because from the ancient time we see that the soldiers or the army had to go through some initiative transgression process in order to be accepted in the White House or in the Parliament or in the Churchill form, whatever you call it, in order to be in administration. So they had to go to some transgressive process. In ancient Greece, you can see that the soldiers, in order to be accepted in the administration, they had to kill the first farmer they see. So in this way transgression works. So that is another topic here in this story, which runs deep. So this is what I wanted to tell you. Now there are few questions which, if you answer, I will give you copies of this book. Not this book, this is printed in, I believe in 2009. Yeah, it is a 2008 copy, but I will give you the original 2005 copy written by Stieg Larsson, the original copy, to 5 people who give the right answer to these questions. So share this video as much as you can. Share it on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or whatever, wherever you want. But those 5 people who gives the correct answer, they will get the original copy of this. I will give them, I will send it to their house. So the questions are: why did Vanger wait for 36 years before hiring Mikael Blomqvist? So give your answer. Why did they wait? The biggest organization in Sweden, they couldn't track the parcel or the pressed flower that was given every year on Henrik's birthday. They couldn't even track that who has sent them the flower. So that is number 1 question. Number 2 question is, if Anita Vanger gave her passport to Harriet Vanger to flee to Australia, then how was Anita Vanger able to shift to London with a new passport? That is number 2 question. And number 3, I can place it like number 3. It is tricky. Let me figure out. Yeah, that is the most important part. So if Blomqvist knew that Martin was the criminal or the serial killer, then why did he enter Martin's house without any protection, without calling the police or without having any protection? Why did Blomqvist enter into Martin's house? So that is the 3rd question. One more I will give, that is the 4th. So that should be like, so I think let's keep it here. Yeah, let's keep it here. So 3 questions. So if you answer these correctly, so I will give you the original copy of this book. I know that you already have got it, but still that will be special. The 2005 version of that book, the original print, written by Stieg Larsson. So this much for today. Signing off, Joy Ganguly, and I will see you in the next video.